WisconsinEye is in Oshkosh at the State Democratic Party Convention. We're interviewing Senate Democratic Leader Jennifer Shilling of La Crosse. Senator, thanks for taking time here.
Good afternoon. It's fantastic to be here.
5 p.m. is a deadline for your candidates to file for November 6th.
Yes.
Give us a preview. Tell us about your candidates. Tell us about Tell us about the seats that are most at play.
Well, obviously, we feel really good about this election cycle. The Senate Democrats started off the year in January with a huge upset in Senate District 10 with the election of Senator Patty Shockner. It was one that was really not on people's radar. And it caught the Republicans clearly off guard. And so as we moved after that election, the spring elections, with the election of Rebecca Dallet to the Supreme Court, many progressive and Democratic-leaning candidates winning in these nonpartisan seats in city council, county boards, school boards, we again felt really, really good. And that certainly helped our candidate recruitment. We have a fantastic class of the 2018, and many of those candidates were looking at those results and wondering if this was viable, if there was this enthusiasm, if this was an opportunity for them. And so again, as we look now in June with the special election, really in 11 days in Senate District 1, we are excited about that opportunity with Caleb Frostman and electing Caleb to the state Senate. Again, it's one that we shouldn't even be competitive in because it's been held by a Republican for so long.
1976.
1976, but we have a fantastic candidate who is running. Caleb is from the area, his economic development background, lives in Sturgeon Bay, extremely hardworking, fits the district wonderfully, and he loves the natural resources outdoor. He's a hunter and fisher. He's clearly concerned about water quality. He's concerned about growing jobs and economic development. That is his background, and making sure that the middle class has an opportunity for prosperity. And so as we move across the state, the open seats that we have, we certainly need to re-elect in those Democratic holding seats. It's an open seat with Senator Kathleen Vinehout's old seat. We have a primary there. But as we look again in western Wisconsin, seats that we want to flip, the 17th Senate seat in southwestern Wisconsin, Chris Marion is our candidate there. She is on the county board and owner of a small business. It's a bed and breakfast. She's plugged in with the organic community down there and part of Soil Sisters, and really has brought enthusiasm to campaigning that she just loves retail politics. And Chris is one who is working very hard and is crisscrossing the district. And we feel that that is a seat that got away from us 4 years ago. It's a seat that has leaned Democratic, and we are hoping for good things with Chris Marion. I think here in the Oshkosh area, we look at the 19th Senate District with Lee Snodgrass. Lee is the communications director with the Girl Scouts. She is the Outagamie County Democratic Chair. She is one who, as we talked to her about looking for candidates to run for Senate, that she was certainly one that was on our radar. Many people were talking about that she'd be a fantastic candidate. Again, in a year where many women are running for office the first time, she has a fantastic story about growing up here in Appleton. Her parents, her dad worked at Kimberly-Clark. We do have a primary there. There's a primary that we'll have. So we have another candidate, Dan Grady, who has filed, and he's on the county board of Outagamie County Board. So I think as we look at some of our opportunities, again, we've got an open seat that we'd like to take away from the Republicans, and that's in the 23rd. So you look at that seat, Dr. Chris Kapsner is running, and he has the director and a practicing physician with ER doctors and contracts with short and long-term contracts for ER services in hospitals in rural Wisconsin, but also in the Twin Cities. In the 9th, we've got a fantastic young candidate by the name of Kyle Welton who is running, and he is one who I think is certainly going to shock some people, is his work ethic and what he's doing to raise the resources, that he really is one that just puts his head down and has got a tremendous work ethic as he is talking about democratic values. And again, the common theme is these life experiences that these candidates are bringing. It's common sense. It's wanting to govern with reasonable ideas, governing really from the middle, that people are comfortable in that area. And so I'm excited. I don't want to leave out the 5th Senate District, which is in the surrounding suburbs of Milwaukee. That is the open seat that Leah Vukmir. We've got a fantastic candidate in Julie Henze. And so as we look around the state, Lori Hawkins in the 21st here, I want to make sure I don't forget any of our candidates. Lori, small business owner. Going back to the 5th, Julie Henze is a meeting organizer, life coach, and facilitator. We just have wonderful stories that these folks are bringing their experiences. They're concerned that the government that they know and the state that they know doesn't reflect the values that they feel their friends and neighbors and community believe in. And I think that under one party control for 8 years, there's been a wide swing. There is overreach, and I think people are looking for what has happened in the last 8 years. Are our roads better? They're not. Our transportation and infrastructure continues to deteriorate, and we have yet to figure out a long-term funding solution. The Republicans have failed on that. I think that the voters are looking at a failed administration and a failed agenda on education and wildly deep cuts to public schools, to our university system, and now just recently in a re-election budget, the governor finds resources to put back in, but I think the voters have a long memory. And I think finally, as we were talking about Foxconn, and what does Foxconn mean for the rest of the state? And as that price tag continues to grow, it was sold at $3 billion. Republicans have now, it's up to 4.5. And what that means to communities and families around Wisconsin, what's in it for them?
Okay, I want to come back to Senate District 1. If you win the special, if Mr. Frostman wins the special, a special, as what you well know, are different than generals. Sure, he'd be in office, but you're not in session. So are you confident then you could hold it on November 6th in a general?
That clearly gives Democrats the momentum, and I think the fact that we're even competitive in that seat says a lot about the environment that we are in. The fact it's been held by Republicans since the mid-1970s, and I think Republicans were caught off guard with the special election win in January. Our base is clearly motivated. They are energized. I think there is an enthusiasm gap on the Republican side, but I know that they will never give up. And we have a great field plan. We have a great candidate in Caleb Frostman, and we are out there talking to voters, making that door-to-door contact throughout the 1st Senate District.
Are you only going to have one primary in all these seats that you've talked about?
We have a primary in the open 31st,
yes.
Jeff Smith and Steve Bowe. So
that's
Jeff
for
Smith,
Senator Vinehouse's seat.
Yep, that's Senator Vinehouse's seat.
Can you hold that?
Yes, we can hold that seat. I am
Because Senator
confident.
Vinehouse won a narrow victory.
We are seeing in the spring election numbers that I think our base is coming back. That yes, if you recall in 2016, a lot of previously blue or light blue areas of the state went red to pink. And so I know it's a snapshot in time. That is what every poll is, these elections. And as we look at how Justice Rebecca Dallett did in her election and winning the Fox Valley area, as we look at the 19th Senate seat, 57%.
And you've also got a primary in the 19th.
We have a primary in the 19th. Looking at how well she did in western Wisconsin, that I am confident that all of our candidates have been knocking on doors, that they have been circulating their nomination papers, going to events, talking to people. It's that retail politics, and there is an enthusiasm out there. People want someone to listen to them about what they struggle with in their daily life, what their hopes and dreams are for their families, and what the challenges and what the responsibilities they feel that government should participate in these basic services, and that's educating our children, it's safe roads, and it is making sure that there are good jobs and a strong economy across this state.
As you have gone down through each of the Senate elections, I'm impressed. You have an impressive number of women candidates. It's too easy to say it's going to be the year of the woman, but is it, do you think?
I think it is the year that many women are deciding to run for office, and it might have been a movement that got them into running for office, but I think it's the issues that they care deeply about, that they feel like, and as I talk to both men and women about wanting to run for office, I talk about what does change look like if you're in the room and you're participating. what does change look like when you're not in the room? And every candidate says, I want to be in the room. I want to be part of change, that I feel that maybe I have not run for office before. This is the first time through different training mechanisms like Emerge and Wisconsin Women's Policy Network and the Democratic Party. We're training men and women to have the skills necessary to run for office. Many of our partners are doing that. Wisconsin Progress is an example, are training people to run for city council, county board, school board. I think people are concerned about the direction of this country and this nation. I think they then look inwardly and they think, what can I do locally to stand up for change? And it is change in Wisconsin, change in their own community. So I am excited. I think in the legislature, in our caucus right now, in the Senate Democrats, we have 14. We have 7 men and 7 women. And I am extremely proud to stand with those men and women. I think it represents what our communities look like, what our families look like, what our workplaces look like. By having men and women of color, we have both genders. So I think it certainly is. It's important, and it reflects the daily life in the real world of where we live.
With Senator Baldwin's campaign raising money, with whoever the Democratic nominee for governor is raising money, will you have enough to effectively stake these candidates in these Senate seats we've been talking about?
Well, I've certainly learned in the time that I've been serving as leader to learn the art of sharp elbows and to making sure that we have a seat at the table for the Senate Democrats and our organization and our candidates. And so because of some of the attention with that win in January with that special election, certainly folks are paying attention. I think it demonstrates that we want to make sure that we are a good partner. Should we have a new, we win, we beat Scott Walker, we have a new Democratic governor, regardless of who he or she may be, but we want to make sure that in the Senate we offer them that support and building towards that majority with great candidates and great stories and connecting on those local issues, which are so important, that we want to make sure that we have those resources and we are getting ever closer with every election win.
You went to Washington last week to talk about some of these hardcore strategy issues. You cannot meet with some of these third-party groups like Mr. Holder's group. Mr. Holder's group is playing in the 2 special elections. Would you expect significant third-party independent efforts leading up to November 6th, Senator?
I can't look in that crystal ball and know for sure, but the way, unfortunately, the system has been designed and with campaign finance changes that I did not, and my party did not personally support, but it is the way of law and it is the world that we find ourselves in. We can't control some of those. And I think it's frustrating, but yet also it is where we are right now in politics. And we need to have transparency. Certainly we need to have that kind of accountability. But I'm not going to go into battle with one hand tied behind my back when the opposing party is using it to their full extent and the full advantage. And so, yes, these groups are coming in. They are paying attention. They are helping layer that message of what many of the Democrats, what we are talking about. And with that group, the basis is fair maps and gerrymandering. And as we talk to voters, and we have a pending case in the U.S. Supreme Court
with
Wisconsin, any Tuesday, I wake up every Tuesday and think this is the week it's going to happen. That was the initial issue that brought them into Wisconsin. And I think Democrat, Republican, Independent, we should agree on fair representation, fair maps that are drawn without the gerrymandering that has happened. And we have seen them, the courts have said that these are unconstitutional maps.
Okay, if I go along with your premise that your party is going to take the Senate in January of next year, and you're the Senate Majority Leader, is your top priority going to be the 3 issues that you just criticized the governor on, roads, education, and Foxconn?
The issues that we will be talking about, but certainly as we look at infrastructure, that has been one of my top issues for the terms that I've served as leader. That if you look back on tape, what at the end of the session we do these exit interviews.
Yes.
You ask, what do I regret? And it's been 2 sessions, it's been infrastructure. So certainly that has got to be one of our top priorities of finding a long-term sustainable funding mechanism for roads and bridges and that infrastructure that is so important. It is about fully funding our schools and finding a formula that we don't have clear winners and losers in school districts across the state. It's talking about, yes, Foxconn to the degree of what we need to be doing for worker training and what we need to be doing for full employment for people, what we need to be doing for a strong economy. It's also healthcare continues to be an issue, and affordable access to healthcare. This administration, while has attempted, the federal administration, to attempt to gut the Affordable Care Act and defund it, and the governor here has not been helpful and has tried to make it as difficult as possible and to change the guidelines about who is eligible for Badger Care and refusing to accept the Medicare expansion. Again, health care is going to continue to be one of those issues as well.
The U.S. Supreme Court, we're waiting on for the reapportionment decision, but the U.S. Supreme Court just gave states the right to conduct sports betting. Should Wisconsin consider that as a revenue source?
You know, there are, I think, some other opportunities of revenue source. I would really have to look into that more at this time. I think one of the growing, and I'm going to be going to a conference, but that farmers are interested about what can they do to sustain their way of life. I've had more and more farmers talking to me about hemp, growing hemp, and what that industry looks like here in this state. I think certainly if we accepted the Medicaid dollars, that would be an infusion of revenue dollars here into this state as well to help us on the healthcare side. But we need to grow our economy. I think there are certainly ways that we could look at that. That's not my favorite. It's not my go-to that I would think first off the bat of how do we increase revenue here in our state and to go down that path. That I think there are some other ways that I think the voters of Wisconsin feel more comfortable with, and certainly that would be an issue that I don't think would be one of the top 10 issues that we take up right away.
So it's premature to ask if the tribes wanted to reopen the compacts to pay the state more money in exchange for being able to conduct sports betting. You haven't thought about that?
I really haven't. I would love to sit down and I would like to learn more about it. I want to have an open dialogue with the tribes and to be candid about it and to learn more about it. So for me to have a strong position to say this is where we are right now, that would be premature.
Okay, just one more subject. Is it healthy for your party to have 10 plus candidates for governor? Convince me why that's good for your party.
I think it demonstrates that that voters feel like Scott Walker is vulnerable. I think there are many who have stepped up. I will admit that it's tough to get traction. I think it's tough to narrow down, and for an electorate who is busy with families and work commitment and schools and community involvement to be able to kind of pinpoint. But I know that after the primary in August, and when families put their kids back to school and really start to zero in on the elections, the November elections, really kind of Labor Day is the day that I think folks, that time frame, they start to really focus in and think about the elections. This is inside politics right now. These are parlor games that we're talking about.
True.
And so I am not worried at all that there will be unity, there will be the resources, there will be a focus with whomever the nominee is.
So there's no doubt that the 9 people who don't win the primary for governor will support the one who does?
I'm not in the room with that discussion. I will strongly encourage it as the leader of the Senate, and to recognize what opportunity we as Democrats have this year to elect a Democratic Attorney General, to elect a Democratic governor, to re-elect Tammy Baldwin, to elect Democratic members of Congress, and to build back majorities and possibly flip chambers in both the Assembly and the Senate.
And final question. You serve with Senator Vukmir. She won her party's endorsement. Are you concerned about Senator Vukmir versus Senator Baldwin, that Senator Baldwin might lose?
I am not concerned about that at all. That Senator Baldwin is a workhorse. She has championed many issues here that Wisconsin voters connect with. She continues to travel the state regularly, and again, I am confident that Senator Tammy Baldwin will be reelected, and I appreciate the good work that she is doing to talk about opioids and the epidemic, and having the courage to talk about her personal experience with her family. I think it connects with a lot of families in Wisconsin that are dealing with that. As I walked in, I know that she's a strong proponent of buy local, buy Wisconsin. She loves those microbrewery beers. I see her table out there with pint glasses out there that she knows how to work hard, but she also knows how to play and enjoy the many, many fantastic people and industries here in the state.
Senate Democratic Leader Jennifer Shilling, thanks for taking the time. Have a good convention.
Thank you.
Thanks.